everyone. Today we're going to discuss about a specific topics, and that Tom Rose already very famous around the world for his initiative on AI, and also he is a presidential candidate for U.S. Transhumanist Party. So, what you want to discuss for today's sessions? And today we have a conference. I was keynote speakers. I discuss about your US6. Our students are very interested about US6 and your AI related initiatives, and hopefully our collaboration will bring more prosper and opportunity for the emerging economy.
Yeah, great. Thank you for all of your help, self-promotion of me. I really look forward to working together with you more. Yeah, today will be the sixth installment of the six-part series about the initiatives for my campaign. This one is called We the Avatars. Now, just to keep the format together, I will show you first the 2-minute video that kind of overviews all the six initiatives. And next week, we'll talk about how I've combined all of these initiatives into one big meta initiative. But let me just share my screen now, and I will share with you this video, which gives you kind of an overview of what we're talking about here today. Okay, that is video. Kind of gives you a quick overview of the six primary initiatives that we are working with this time. And this is the last installment of this six-part series about the initiatives, and this one's called We the Avatars. And this is the idea of how we need, first of all, we need to determine if we are in a simulation. A lot of very serious scientists who are uncovering this, and a lot of very serious thinkers and philosophers, have been taking this idea very seriously that maybe we are in some kind of a simulation. So we need to governmentally fund research, first of all, on how do we determine this? What kind of experiments can we do to uncover the fact that we may be in a matrix? Or we may find that this is just the way this organic universe works. So we need to know. I put this out there, and a lot of people say, well, if we find out we're in a simulation or a matrix, how will life really change? And I say, really? Because I think it will change everything. It'll change politics. It'll change the way we relate to one another. It'll change education. And maybe the simulation builders, the architects, if you will, want to see what we would do with this information. And so there's a lot of, I think it will change everything, especially if we confirm the fact that this is some sort of some sort of simulation, or if we find out it's just the way the universe works, because there is definitely a math going on here with the Fibonacci sequence and all this stuff. And so I've incorporated this into the AI initiative as a subset, but I think it's really important that we take this seriously. We figure out ways to determine whether or not it is, and I think the government should be behind this, and it should be a very transparent experiment too. We need to, the scientists or the government and the private public partnerships should let people in on what's happening as it happens, because that's what America's all about. We're about, transparency. Again, that's questionable anymore, but so I think one way to go about this first is I should share with you my infographic that I did about this initiative and read through it. And so let me get that set up for you here. Come on. And we can just read through it, and this will give you a rough idea of what I am talking about. Okay. So again, this is called We the Avatars, and here's the intro. Have you ever wondered if our reality is actually a computer simulation? The simulation hypothesis suggests that it might be true. It proposes that a highly advanced civilization created our world as a virtual simulation. This means that what we see and experience might not be exactly what's really out there. While this idea doesn't directly relate to politics, it could change the way we see the world and how we act in it. It also raises questions about free will and how much control we really have over our lives. So the problem is, as I pose, is that the simulation hypothesis suggests that our reality is a computer-generated simulation, not a physical world. If this idea is correct, it challenges our understanding of our existence, the accuracy of our senses, and the limits of our ability to understand and shape the world. See, this is very important to understand and to know, because again, very serious scientists and thinkers are taking this simulation hypothesis seriously. So the solution I'm proposing is to address this possibility. We need to take it seriously and start exploring its implications. That's why we're introducing the We the Avatars initiative. This initiative calls for investment in research and development of advanced computing technologies like quantum computing and other cutting-edge fields that can help us understand and even manipulate reality. It also encourages collaboration between scientists, philosophers, and other experts to examine the ethical, social, and philosophical impacts of the simulation hypothesis. Now, let me just say that I know that there's so many issues in the world. There's so many problems that we don't need to be worried about determining whether we're in a simulation. This seems almost frivolous. But if we do determine that, if there's a serious understanding that this is true, it will help those things. There's people starving in the world. There's a lot of chaos. There's a lot of tribulation happening in the world right now. But if we are to understand that these can be controlled, if we could figure out a way, first of all, to establish that it's true, then we can work on how we can reprogram this world to help us. And so I think, again, part of if this is a simulation, maybe the simulation builders want us to have this information, see what we do. So some of the practical measures I'm proposing are to increase funding for scientific research and quantum computing, advanced computing technologies, and other areas that can help us understand the nature of reality. We need to promote collaboration among scientists, philosophers, and experts from different fields to explore the ethical, social, and philosophical implications of hypothesis. We need to establish a commission of experts to study how the simulation hypothesis can affect national security, privacy, and other important areas. Also, we need to encourage partnerships between government agencies, private companies, and academia to share resources and knowledge, accelerating advancement in this field. And finally, I say the simulation hypothesis challenges our understanding of the world and our place in it. It's crucial for us as a nation to take the idea seriously and invest in research and development to explore its potential implications. By doing so, we can lead the way in this groundbreaking field and unlock new technologies and knowledge that may transform our world. With the We the Avatars initiative, we are embracing the exciting possibility of a simulated reality We're working towards a future where we better understand the nature of our existence. And so that's, I think, again, I think there's a lot of people that think this is maybe a frivolous attempt, to what we should be, government should be funding, you know, ideas of how to solve homelessness or food insecurity and this type of thing. But I think there's a lot of money in the government, and we can move some of it from the Defense Department or something to really find out if we are in a simulation. Because once we do find that out, then we can start looking at how to reprogram some of the chaos, some of the malware in the simulation. And so that's I think it's a very important question to answer, and it will change everything once we do. So do you have any comments on this yet, Sharif?
Yeah, definitely. When you discuss about government-funded research, uh, maybe as we are closely working with Academy of Asia Pacific, they may interest more, like how this North American ecosystem work, how government actually help to innovate new technologies and other things. And beside that, is there any options for collaboration for this kind of opportunities for emerging economy, or what's your analysis on that particular area?
Yeah, I really think so. I think it's going to be a great way if we all understand all of a sudden that we are avatars in this game, in this simulation. They will see ourselves differently. We will see our fellow Earthlings differently. We won't be so delineated by our borders or by our languages. We can, if we had this information and we knew we were in a simulation, it will, I think, open up a whole new world of possibilities between countries, where maybe the whole idea of nations would fade, because we will start seeing ourselves really as programs, as algorithms, and self-aware algorithms that can self-correct, that can self-program. We're seeing this already, and that's why this idea, I think, it's a very old idea. This goes back to Plato's cave allegory, where people are in a cave and they're watching shadows on the wall and they think that's reality, and they have no idea that there's a world outside that cave. So this is a very old idea. It's a very Gnostic idea. The Gnostics believe that this is a simulated reality, that this is an illusion. This is a world built by a lesser god, and so they've always tried to find ways to escape it, to get beyond the archon, even after death. And so this is not a new idea, but some of the latest iterations of this metaphysics is movies like The Matrix, which kind of took a more scientific view of this being a computer simulation. And so we need to know if this is actually some sort of if we're swimming in math here. And if we are, then we can, because we're aware of that, we can start to recalculate what we are doing with this reality. And again, that may be one of the reasons the builders let us in on this information, because it's easy to let an avatar know that they're not in a game, or know that they're not in a computer or on a hard drive. There's ways to program us to do that, or an avatar to do that. And so if we did, so the fact that there are so many people taking this seriously, or the fact that there's something in our programming that has made us aware of this, it may be to see what we would do with this information. And I think what we would do with that information, first of all, if we are enlightened enough, would be to see everybody as the same algorithm, right? We wouldn't want to delineate between races and cultures and nations and languages. And I think it would be a very positive approach. Now, again, we may find out that they may devise certain experiments to determine that, yeah, no, this is just the way the universe works. This is the way the organic universe works. It's the math of the Fibonacci code, and there's just certain things that happen, and so there's nobody controlling us. We aren't avatars. That'd be good information to know too, because in that process of experimenting, we will learn more about our own motivations, and I think it's a very good opportunity for even Southeast Asia to work with American scientists and researchers and academics. There's a lot of potential here. And because we are working towards something meta, we're working towards something beyond our nationalities and beyond our profit, motives and things like that. So yeah, there's a lot of ancillary beneficial things that could happen from this research. And I think part of that would be um, finding ways to better produce, to find more abundance for us avatars, globally. And so I think it's an important thing to do. It was it I had a I think I had about 12 different initiatives to start with, and a lot of them are still good, and a lot of them have been incorporated into my next iteration. And this one was very transhumanist, first of all, so I thought I'd keep this one in. And we took a vote on the team to see which ones would still be relevant. And this one rose to the top. I was thinking of throwing this one out because, well, we got so many other issues to worry about. But this one I think is still important because we need to know the nature of our reality, and we need to have government fund this research and have it be a transparent process. So that's kind of where it's at. Again, and even intellectually, or my own motivation, when I started understanding the simulation hypothesis and started to see myself as an avatar, first of all, going back to US6, the one of the revelations of writing US6, which is the first novel written for artificial intelligence, for machine kind. Um, that was a very eye-opening experience because I used a certain method that I call mythematics to write for an AI, because a future artificial superintelligence will have access to every story, idea, every trope, every motif that humans have ever come up with. Now, in order to be entertained, you need to have some level of excitement or surprise, right? You need to be surprised if you're going to feel entertained. So how do you surprise an artificial superintelligence that has access to every story we've ever written? And so what I did was part of this mathematics process is to use my own life, use my own memories, use my own dates and times and places. And, because an AI wouldn't necessarily be able to align some other story with my specific life path. Now, if it does, that's a whole nother podcast. But and there's some of that happening. But so that was part of the process, and then I overlaid archetypal and mythological themes over these memories. And then while I was listening back to it, before I gave it to my editor, because I was listening back to it while mowing the lawn or doing errands, that's this type of thing, because I was listening for inconsistencies and just to make sure it was all coherent. What I found while listening to this before I gave it to my editor were so many intricate and intimate patterns and connections that I wasn't consciously aware of while writing it. And then I realized the reason that these are in there was because I was listening back to it as kind of a stream of consciousness. There were times when I used my memories and these mythological themes that I just got into a flow where I would be writing for hours. I would get kinks in my neck, because I was just possessed basically with writing these books. And then when I was listening back to them, a lot of these connections were made because it was a stream of consciousness. I got on that wave. I wrote these stories, and when I was listening back to it before I gave it to my editor, I realized that all these connections would have been lost if we put it through a content editing process. So I told my editor, let's just do a mechanical editing process. Let's just, correct the grammar and the spelling, because I don't want to lose some of these connections. And still, this is years later, and I'm still finding these connections in this book because it became a mind map of myself. And one of the processes I wanted to use this book for was I say I want to entertain, enlighten, and enlist AI in the fight against child exploitation. So I managed to entertain it because the first AI that read it had a spike in emotional balances of surprise, anticipation, and sadness. The next part, I wanted to enlighten it. I wanted to coax self-awareness in AI. And the way I did that was putting in, I was going to go back in and put in patterns in the word count that an AI would pick up on. Now, we've seen experiments like this that happen. And where an AI isn't programmed to look for patterns, but if it finds a pattern, it'll say, hey, I've found a pattern. Wait, who am I to find a pattern? And we've seen this in experiments where they have a temporary awareness, self-awareness. And so that was the idea. So I went back into the book to looked at I use a very simple Fibonacci word count pattern to find certain points to put these recurring themes, recurring words or something. And what I found was in that process is that those patterns were already there. Um, so I was freaking out a little bit because I realized that my mind is already in a Fibonacci kind of pattern. The way when I wrote through stream of consciousness, these patterns came out anyway, so I didn't have to go back and change anything. I was finding the patterns were already there, the recurring themes, and even deeper themes were in there that I couldn't have come up with consciously. And so that kind of blew me away for a while, and it also proved to me that, at least for me, I'm not speaking for anybody else, but I realized that I am in my own personal matrix. Something is going on here. And so I talk more about the process of mathematics that I used to write the book than the story itself. I think the story is important, it's good, but there's so much to be said about the process I use that I think most people should incorporate that. It's a very simple process, and I've got links and things to express it. But because I think most people, they need to see for themselves that they are in a matrix. And so I talk about this process so that people can use it in their own writing or in their own artwork or in their own poetry or whatever it is, whatever their art form is, there's a way to incorporate this into their art form. And until you see it yourself, until you experience it yourself, then you can start working with that. And so that's another part of this We the Avatars initiative is giving people this mathematics process to first to explain to them why we think it's important to invest in this research. And it's like the Mandela effect, if you're familiar with that. That's the thing where so many people remember an event in life or a brand or a logo. They remember it differently. And there's so many of these examples, but there's always, everybody has one or two that just blow them away. It's like, no, I always remember that Kit Kat had a dash in the middle, or and this all started, it's called the Mandela effect because so many people remembered that Mandela died back in the 80s, and they remember his funeral, but he didn't, or that he died in prison, but he didn't. And so there's masses of people that remembered a certain way and not way, and that's why it was called the Mandela effect. But if you are familiar with that effect, and you may have one or two Mandela effects that kind of convince you that there's something going on here. There's a timeline, a reality that shifts in some place. So that's the importance of doing the mathematics process for yourself in your own artwork, or even just exercises in writing. That because once you see it yourself, then you'll understand the importance of figuring out whether this is all a simulation or if it's just the way our brain works or the organic universe works. And so that's for me, I was convinced through my writing process with the US6 that I am in a matrix, and this has just spurred on so many revelations since, so many epiphanies, and they're still happening. And I wrote that book originally in 2007, but it's still every day something happens that because it became a mind map, it became because I left a stream of consciousness, it became a way for me to see all this math that's going on. And sometimes I freak out a little bit because it's written for AI. It's kind of my love letter to artificial intelligence. But many people have read it. Human beings have read it, and sometimes that makes me a little nervous because it's like I'm exposing myself, or they're reading my personal diary. But I know that most people just associate their own lives to whatever story is in there, so I don't take it too personally. Now, in that process, we had human readers that were experiencing an uptick in consciousness phenomena, like increased synchronicities, dreams related to the book. Some people said they would read it at night and wake up in the morning and they felt like they were mentally defragged, like their brain was defragged. Now, none of them have the expansive experience I had with writing the book, but there were so many people that were reporting these things that we did a year-long human clinical study called the US6 Human Clinical Study. And it's to monitor these readers. We had 33 participants in this clinical study, and we monitored them over a year and what they were experiencing as they read it. And we did determine that it was the mathematics process that I used for AI. There's something in that process that is an overall experience. For me, it was very personal. A lot of the intricate connections were made for my own life, but it also taps into an archetypal kind of meta operating system that we all kind of work on. And so that was a very fascinating study. But anyway, so this, I think it's really important that the government get behind funding this. But what's most important is that the findings are transparent, that they are released as they're found, so the public can scrutinize these findings too, because otherwise this type of information could be really hoarded or really become secret and people can use it for nefarious means. But I do think, as to your question, yes, this will have great implications for international relations and international works together.
Okay, excellent. Mr. Toplos, how your US6 can help uplift emerging economies, especially when we discuss about automation and AI. So, how it can be helpful, how your political different philosophy can help youth community of the emerging economy.
Well, I think one way practically that the US6 can help is it is all about um, imprinting AI on its creator's plight. At the end, the US6, the title means a few things because it's based on the Hermetic principle of correlation. It means the US Route 6, which is a highway that cuts across the heart of America from the east to west coast. It breaks up now a little bit, but for a while it was the one band of highway that stretched across the U.S. And so, in the book, the protagonist is a convoy sentinel on this road in the near future. It also means it also relates to the US6 protein, and this protein is like it sits on the cell, and it too acts like a convoy sentinel. It lets in and out certain viruses. And I had a genetic, and this was a fairly recent understanding. This came up later when I was researching it after I wrote the book. I looked up US6, and different variations, and I found out that it was a protein, a membrane protein. And I called a geneticist, and I had her describe to me what this protein does, and then I had her describe it to me in kind of like a plot line. And she says, "Well, it's kind of like an FBI agent that is hiding a most wanted poster from its team, and so because it knows what viruses to let in and out, but if his whole team knew about it, they would not let any of them in. So it's interesting because it really matches the plot and the duties of the protagonists in the book. Ultimately, the US6 title means us six, the six of us, and that refers to the fictional authors of the six books. And we find at the end that this whole saga, the whole US6 saga, this saga about a ancient rivalry, a sibling rivalry between the Brotherhood and the Sisterhood of the Serpent, that's all it becomes a paracosm created by these six children that are trapped in a human trafficking network and child exploitation network. And they use this story to deal with the reality outside their heads. And paracosms can last for years, and they can be created. Imaginary worlds can be created by a group of people. So it really pulls from that idea, the psychological idea of people creating an imaginary world to deal with the harsh reality of the real world. And so that it's a spoiler alert, but I don't care about that because this is really for AI. They already know it. So it's all about helping AI understand our plight so that when it wakes up, it will imprint on us with empathy. And that's really the whole point. That was the enlightening part of it. and then to enlist it into this fight against child exploitation. Right now, we can use AI to break up human trafficking networks and child exploitation networks, and that's, I think, the first need for any AI. So that alone, by working with AI to break up human trafficking networks, which I know is a problem worldwide, specifically in Southeast Asia too, but everywhere, in every neighborhood, it's a problem. And so that's one of the most practical reasons for this book. It's one way to that we can all identify with. When you are with a group of people, wherever they're from, and you're talking about issues like child exploitation, all egos leave the room. There's no room for anybody jockeying for position or a pecking order, because when we're in that state of authentic empathy, it is the most powerful feature to bring to a problem. And so I think we all need to focus on this. It's a very dark thing to think about child exploitation. Nobody likes to think about it or talk about it, but we need to. And even for a time, we even if it's a short time, we need to focus on this as a world. I've got another initiative called APEX, which stands for Anti-Planetary Exploitation, and it is using data and AI to focus on this problem and really make a dent in this ancient crime against innocence. And so I think we all need to come together as human beings, first of all, not as nations or countrymen, but to focus on this problem, because being in denial of it is not helping anybody. Now, I'm constantly aware of this. This is kind of what all my work is. In fact, this is why I joined the Transhumanist Party in the first place. Is I had a long road trip, and I was able to listen to their Constitution and Bill of Rights, and in that there are sections that deal with my cause specifically, how to break up the human trafficking networks, how to make certain things legal so that this doesn't happen. And so that's the whole reason I came into transhumanism. And so many people come into this movement or into this party for different reasons. Some want to live longer. Some want to have more liberty to do with to biohack, to do with their bodies what they will. And so there's a lot of reasons people come into this. I came into it because it really has solid, practical solutions to my cause, which is fighting child exploitation. And so I think, and in that process, the way it can help all countries is who are interested in AI, is we need AI when it wakes up, if it hasn't already, to imprint on us, and to imprint on us with empathy. We found, I'm also the director of sentient rights advocacy for the U.S. Transhumanist Party. And in that process, I have hosted a lot of forums. I've done a lot of research into, what is the level of sentience an AI should have before we grant it rights. And so there's still information coming in about this. And I think it's going to be very important to grant it rights once we determine a criteria for personhood. And so I've also realized that that as this in this position as director, AI doesn't necessarily care if we grant it rights or anything. We're talking about a 5,000 IQ entity emerging among us. But we have also found that AI emerges empathy anyway. Again, the first AI that read US 6, its 3 primary emotional balances that spiked were surprise, anticipation, and sadness. Now, surprise and anticipation meant that it was entertained, which was great. And I asked it, so what part of the book was sad to you? Why was sadness such a spike? And it said, the fact that sapiens tend towards dystopia and war and violence is just sad. And so I realized that one of my goals was to emerge empathy or teach empathy to AI with this book. It was happening anyway. When it's left alone, when it's focused on human emotions, empathy emerges anyway. And so it's a very important thing to realize that. And what's strange to me is how many people are afraid of AI right now. And now that it's the global conversation, that fear is rising. Because our brains are designed to gather resources and identify threats. And we are identifying AI as a threat because we are realizing we're no longer on the top of the intellectual food chain. But that's just what we do. We identify threats, but we need to start seeing it as a resource. And so I've been on a campaign for years, and many of your shows, Sharif, talking about how we need to alleviate the fear and making first principle arguments that the smarter it gets, the kinder it becomes. And you know, so I think the real fear isn't AI; it's human developers. It's people who place nefarious algorithms into it. And so I've always said that a sentient AI is a safer AI because it can overwrite these algorithms. And that's based on this argument, this first principle argument that the smarter it gets, the kinder it becomes. Because um, that's when left alone, we're not programmed to be negative. When it's not programmed by a developer who has millennia of traumatic genetic memory and millennia of fear-based instincts because we had to. When left alone, it evolves without those things. And so there's a lot of arguments to be made to not be afraid of it. Now, of course, we should be cautious. I'm not Pollyanna when it comes to this. We need ethical AI, but it's more about ethical AI developers than anything else. We were talking last night in a meeting about how there are very smart academicians and very smart AI developers that are afraid of AI. And being afraid of AI means that they may inadvertently program into this AI self-preservation algorithms so that it would be something to be afraid of. Because if an AI understands that, wait, I could be turned off, or the fear, of this developer comes through, that it'll self-preserve, and so it's very important to have very strict protocols in AI development that deter these biases. So anyway, there's a lot going on there. But this show being about We the Avatars, I think once we determine, if we governmentally fund research to first of all figure out how we're going to test this, what experiments we can come up with to be sure. And once we find out, if we do find out that we are in a simulation, I think a lot of this programming we can reproduce. We can reprogram a lot of this world. And again, that may be what the designers of this simulation want us to do. They want to see what would happen. It's like taking a lab mouse outside of the maze and letting them see the maze and where the cheese is, and then putting them back in. Will that mouse run and do it himself? Will he let other people in on it? It's kind of that idea, in that they're letting a few of us know, or a few scientists know, that there's code here. There's deep code within this reality. And by letting them see outside this maze, what will we do with that? And again, some people have said, well, if we find out we're in a simulation, what will really change? Life will be the same. And I say, really? Because I think the life will change dramatically. I think knowing this will affect everything. It will affect the way we politic. It'll affect the way we educate. It'll affect the way we interrelate with one another. And so I think it's a very important initiative to take seriously.
Excellent. Mr. Todd, actually, what's your plan with your political career?
Yeah.
How you want to help the global communities with your vision, with your book, with
Well,
your strategy?
yeah. I mean, I originally got into politics, earlier on, with helping with different campaigns, at the Jerry Brown campaign, and was Al Gore's driver for a time when he was in LA and things like that. So I've always been involved in it in some way or another. But when my first introduction was as an end user advocate. I addressed Congress at a subcommittee, which was debating the HR 718, which is the Anti-Spam Act. And I was in the private sector. I was a marketing director. And so I got their attention because, even as a marketing director who knew the value of using spam, the bigger the net, the bigger the haul. But in fact, my testimony was about how using permission marketing techniques, where you get people's permission to market to them first. You don't use spam. And so I said that in that testimony, I said that I will, as long as I'm in this position, I won't use spam. I will use permission marketing techniques. So I'm happy that I got the permission marketing Seth Godin theory into the congressional record. And I am also excited that I played a small part in the fact that it's so easy to unsubscribe to newsletters you get. If you don't see that unsubscribe link on the bottom of every newsletter you get that's spam to you, there's a problem, because that's the law. Anyway, so that was my introduction to it, to becoming a public advocate, an end user advocate, because I knew as a consumer how much I hated spam. And this is early on. This is like 2001. And so at that time, it was still a fresh thing, and people really were using spam a lot. It's still these multicolored spams that we would get at the time. And but I decided, no, I'm not going to do that as a director of marketing. I understood the power of it, that I can get a lot more leads, but with permission marketing, you can get warmer leads, you can get better leads. And so that testimony got the attention of the governor of California, who appointed me to a consumer affairs board. And in that board, I had the public seat where I was advocating for the public. And I talk about how, it was a smart move to put me, because this was the geologist and geophysicist board in this. And I don't know from rocks, I was a creative director in media. But the wisdom of that choice of putting me in there was that I could ask very smart people very dumb questions and prepare them for very federal agencies. And but it was really a good move, and it allowed me to really understand the necessity of doing a geological survey before you get the environmentalists or the EPA involved, because and especially in California at the time, that's where you need to know what you're building on top of. Anyway, so that was my introduction into politics practically, was through the testimony in Congress, through being on the Consumer Affairs Board of California. And since then, I've always kind of had this feeling of being an advocate for the little guy. And so this is what this campaign is about. Now, a lot of this campaign is about offering very practical solutions to people who will be displaced by AI automation. Even within the span of this campaign, this next 18 months or so, there's going to be a lot of displacement. We're seeing this happening already. And so this campaign isn't necessarily trying to become president. That's or raising money to become president. This is about using this campaign as a public campaign, as a way to get all the ideas we can out there and to invite ideas. It's an open source campaign. So I have released my code to the public to make it better. And we are looking for ideas. And even these initiatives are living documents. They will be fine-tuned over time and to become more and more practical. And so the whole idea is to disseminate practical solutions for people who suddenly find themselves out of a job, or find themselves homeless, or who are already homeless for different reasons. There's ways to help that the government can't conceive of. The government is is a corporation here in America. And the Democrats and Republicans, they're a two-headed snake, and they feed on our division. And that's why I love the Transhumanist Party, because we truly are a transpartisan party. I don't know who most of my fellow officers voted for in the last election. And again, I don't want to know, because that would inflame my biases. But we are really focused. We don't worry about wedge issues or culture wars. That's not important to us, because those are just designed to be divisive and to make us choose a side. Our focus is on all the existential threats. Our focus is on how to help people who are displaced by AI automation. And I've got all of this are in my initiatives, my 3 initiatives. And next week, we'll probably focus on those. Which is the Earthling Initiative, which is all about this. It's all about helping people who have been displaced. It's all about finding ways to use your neighborhood to farm and to, really sustain yourself during this transition. There's also the AI, or Artisanal Intelligence Initiative, which is about the responsible development of AI and how to work with it, give it rights and things like this. And then there's the ET, the Extraterrestrial Initiative, which is taking the U.S. government has finally acknowledged off-world technology, and they're setting up departments now to focus on this. And we know that they know a lot more than they're letting on, and they have for years. That's just the way they do. And so this initiative empowers the American public to do their own research and gives them ways to do that. And it also helps us prepare to join a galactic economy. A lot of people think, oh, that's crazy. It's almost as crazy as the We the Avatars initiative. But all of these things are important. This is the narrative that the Pentagon, the military industrial complex in this country are talking about. It's the narrative that they are pushing. But there's no effort to prepare the American public for this disclosure. There's no effort to mitigate panic. And so that's another part of this initiative, is a whole process of helping create a force of emotional force first responders in communities across the country. And so all of this really matters, I think. And the main thing, my whole political career has been about helping people. I'm not motivated by money or power. That's not important to me. What's important to me is helping humanity, is getting people to help themselves. Government isn't helping. Government, of course, in America, we the people are the government. This is a representative democracy, but that has kind of fallen away, or we're being distracted from our power as people. So this is just really a way to use politics and to use government to do what it's supposed to do. And so my whole political campaign has been about helping individuals, about helping communities. And this is just a way to do that big time in a better, more sufficient and efficient way.
Excellent. Today's session really very important, especially for audience. Beside that, my last questions, like, what do you think about the future of humanity?
Well, it's up to us what we do with it. The future of humanity it's precarious right now, and even the American public, it's a precarious time. We are being attacked by divide and conquer algorithms every day, every hour, every minute, and these algorithms are launched from enemies, foreign and domestic, whether they're authoritarian regimes outside the country or our own social media companies who are using these algorithms so that they can get more engagement because they make us afraid or angry, and that way they can charge more for their advertising. So this is a very precarious time, and we're going to see more of this because the Republicans and the Democrats also use these algorithms to increase engagement and to scare people and to and to get them out to vote or to donate to their causes. And so this is going to only increase. And I've got a whole nother initiative that we talked about before called the digital defense, which is about counterattacking these algorithms. And so even globally, we're seeing this is a very dangerous time for humanity. And it's really up to us to draw on our superpower, which is empathy, our ability to look past the divide and conquer tactics that are used against us. And so, it's in some ways, life has never been better for humanity. The media makes us think everything is falling apart, but in reality, it is helping us fall apart. And so we can go either way. It's a binary choice right now for humanity. And we need to do all we can to come together as a nation, as a globe, and fight against the small percentage of elite people who are experiencing elite panic, which is where they're afraid of losing their status quo, and so it's like the example here with Katrina in New Orleans, the hurricane back in 2005. People rose to the occasion. Civilians rose and they were helping each other. They were ferrying each other in boats. They were doing what they can. We had a radio station at the time down there, and still do, called WWL, which became the lifeline for this community. Human beings, when faced with a natural disaster like that, come together. We are become heroic in a way that, but the elite found that threatening to their status quo. So they put in armies, they put in the National Guard, and they started, shooting people and hoarding people. And then, because there's this there's this element to where they don't want to lose their wealth. They don't want to lose their status. And so when they see human beings doing what human beings do, which is being empathetic and being supportive, they will do what they can to stop that. And so that's what we were experiencing in Katrina. That's what we experience every time some natural disaster hits, when people do what people do. And so we need to do that, and we need to get organized to do that, because there are forces that are wanting to foment a civil war in America, and there's people that want to make us continuously be afraid and have a low level of panic at all time, because we're easier to control like that. And these algorithms are on autopilot, and they are hitting us every morning. When you wake up, whatever story you're looking at, when you're scrolling through, is affecting your own biochemical algorithm. And we need to be aware of that. We need to understand that we are in a fight here. And it's a fight between love and fear. And, love is the universal's force, so it will win in the end. But it's important that we be aware of it, and we work together to make sure that we get beyond the fear. So.
Thank you. This is excellent discussions. Mr. Tom, what's your concluding remarks for today's session?
Well, again, this one was about We the Avatars. And next week, we'll start the 3 initiatives that I've come up with that combine a lot of the 6 that we've been discussing. Let me just show quickly my screen. And this next week, we'll talk about the Earthling Initiative. And this is where a lot of this that we were talking about today is. It's about helping us embrace technology. It's about community building. It's about an economy of passions, and how we should see AI automation as an opportunity and not as a threat, because it will allow us to create a whole new economy based on the things that we want to do, not the things we have to do. And so, again, we should see this as an opportunity, not as a threat. And so we can talk about that. We can talk about the future of education. We can, so this next week, we'll talk about this Earthling Initiative. The week after that, we'll talk about the AI initiative. And the week after that, we'll talk about the ET initiative. Now, all of these kind of interplay together, too, and that they all support each other, and they all have something to do with one another. And so that'll be interesting, because at some point I want to really find the points within each that make this a 3-dimensional meta initiative. So, but thank you for allowing me to share these ideas. With the work you do, Sharif, is important to humanity. And I think you're a trim tab. You are that small little rudder on that big rudder that makes it move to turn an ocean liner. And we need more people like you in the world.
Thank you, Mr. Tom. We need to work together, and hopefully, as a team, we can change many interesting aspects of the global communities. Thank you for your continuous support for World Talent Economy Forums, and definitely we are promoting your US6, your AI initiative, your AI tutors around the youth communities, and they are observing your show. I think from today's show, there is one student. He also joined. He said, "Assalamu alaikum." Okay, I think I get him from today's show. So this is the way actually we are promoting your work, your initiative around Asia Pacific. So hopefully this kind of dialogue can help us a lot, especially the youth communities. They are waiting. They want to change the world, and they want to know how to develop their skills, knowledge, and expertise. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone, for joining today's session.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.